continent that boasts two of the 7 wonders of the world, namely the pyramids in Egypt and the Great Migration of East Africa. Greetings to all our viewers.
In a week that has seen the continent hold one successful election, this indeed promises to be a great show. I'm Sarah Thiriku.
And I am Lenny Ruvaga. This is African Voice.
We begin our show with a quote from Nelson Mandela.
It's futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks.
Indeed, Sarah, during the transition of South Africa from apartheid to the Rainbow Nation, Nelson Mandela embodied all that is hope. Now, later on, we'll be heading over to East Africa and give you an update on the upcoming referendum in South Sudan. But first, here's what's in store.
The walk to womanhood. The Swahili Fashion Week is back in town. Plus, we check out the highs and lows at the stock market this past week. These and lots more on today's edition of African Voice.
In Kenya, female circumcision, or FGM, has recently been outlawed by the Kenyan government. However, in one particular community, the walk to womanhood begins with circumcision.
For hundreds of years, music has been able to bring the Kuria people of southern Kenya together. Despite modernity, initiation dances like these have stood the test of time. Just like their forefathers did, this village is preparing its young people for adulthood. Circumcision is done once every 2 years and is the biggest social event for many Kurias. The dancing will carry on until the next day, when many young initiates will begin new lives. Every home with an initiate proudly flies a flag on their rooftop. Chacha Kenega's household is one such place. He's preparing a huge party for his daughter, who will become a woman today. Since time immemorial, Kuria girls have had to undergo circumcision to earn respect. Chacha is proud of honoring his traditions.
Lazima utairiwa hapa kwetu ndiye hata leo. Nilisaliwa mimi nikapata hao watu wakiwa wanaendelea kutairiwa. Sasa kitu gani kitasababisha kupinga hiyo kutairi?
Kwa Wakuria hiyo walikuwa nasema kwamba hiyo mila ni ya kupunguza wanawake makali, yani wasio wanatangatanga sana.
Chacha has spared no expenses in honoring his daughter. He's hired a local band to accompany her to her circumcision. "16-year-old Ryle is determined to go through the ritual. It's the school holidays now, so she'll be circumcised with most of her age mates. She's been well prepared for this day and knows there can be no turning back.
In female circumcision, although we don't do it, but we have seen it being done, is whereby they chop all the clitoris off.
Because of the high possibility of HIV and AIDS infections, every girl is cut by her own razor. No one is allowed to cry out, as it would bring great shame to her family. Even though the circumciser is quick and experienced, the pain is excruciating. The girls are now considered ready for marriage. Those in school often drop out to find husbands. On their walk back home, They chew a local herb to stop them bleeding. Some girls bleed to death. Many others will contract vaginal infections and have urinary and sexual difficulties for the rest of their lives. Circumcised women often have complications during childbirth. For these reasons, female circumcision is illegal in Kenya. Anyone caught practicing it can be jailed for a year or fined up to $630. Ryle doesn't know that she's broken the law, but she is aware of the effects circumcision will have on her health. She chose to go ahead with it in order to escape future humiliation.
Sababu kubwa kabisa ya kutahiriwa. Ukiolewa kwa mji wa mtu ambapo hukutahiriwa unapata shida sana. Sababu anakutukana sana.
It may be years before female circumcision can be rooted out amongst the Kuria people. Like those before them, many young girls will have to go through the practice for the sake of their community.
The Kenyan government needs to be applauded for outlawing FGM. As a woman, it's a grueling experience.
Welcome to African News Briefs. Joining me today is Simon Bevy, the CEO of Transform Kenya, and a political analyst. Welcome, Simon.
Glad to be here.
As always, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Let's kick off the show with Ethiopia. Meles Zenawi, he's beating the drums of war. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, I think Meles Zenawi's voice is a voice of protest. Again, as a treaty which was made 1929, 1959, that's when they made this treaty, to allocate about 55.5 billion cubic meters of water to Egypt. Yeah. And then the rest, Sudan gets 18.5 billion cubic meters. The rest of nations that share the Nile, they don't get much. Yes. And I think the circumstances were different. That was a colonial treaty. Yes, that was unfair. I think it's unfair for the rest of the countries. And I think Zenawi is just speaking on behalf of Kenya and Rwanda and Uganda and the rest of these countries. They're saying we need to renegotiate this.
Yeah. And these are the 7 riparian countries. Yeah. Don't they have a right to use the waters that cross through their countries? What about sovereignty?
They do have a right. Egypt argues that 95%, close to 95% of the local water usage actually comes from the Nile. So they're saying we need to protect ourselves. They're justified in that way. But the way this was negotiated so many years ago, what the other countries are saying, we need to come back to the table. And for a while now, actually since 1990s, the Nile Basin Initiative was to bring Egypt and Sudan to the table to renegotiate this. Nothing much has come out of it. And I think Meles Zenawi is just following up on what they said in May. This year and say, no, we've got to do something. It's just the bold one trying to speak for the rest of these nations.
Yeah. Well, only time will tell. Now, our second story, or our second brief rather, takes us all the way to Gambia. His Excellency, the President of Gambia, Sheikh Professor Alhaj Dr. Yahya Jammeh, quite a mouthful, is actually running for the 2011 presidential election. Simon, again, what do you take of this?
The power sharing deal there, the power struggles actually. We see the Prime Minister, Brother Morgan
Tsvangirai.
Yeah, taking Brother Bob to court.
Two brothers.
His Excellency.
Yes.
Taking him to court and saying we were supposed to be consulting about the appointment of governors. You appointed 10 of them, you didn't consult me. So he has dragged him into the High Court and said, let's settle this in court. I mean, every time there's some trouble, Zuma jets in and gets to talk about this, and they get to renegotiate. I think he's saying, I've been pushed to the corner. This big brother is bullying me as a small brother in this unity government. And so he's crying out. And I think he's justified. He's really justified. He's just trying to say, if we can't talk about this and sort it out politically, I have other ways of sorting it out. He's trying to make a statement to the president.
Simon, it is my understanding that President Mugabe holds all the tools of power. So he's not at fault to blatantly push away Morgan Tsvangirai.
It's not really power sharing, and I think the Prime Minister has struggled. And what he's doing now, it's like a last resort. Used to say, guys, you need to intervene. I think he's calling out for President Zuma to throw his weight and say, guys, let's play fair. It's like a big boy bullying a small boy. Definitely, democracy is very difficult in a power-sharing agreement like this. It's a last resort, just for the nation to survive for now, before something else is done, which is go to elections and just elect a good government.
Now, Simon, our last take is on Gado's take, and this is a pictorial section. Yeah? What are your comments on this?
President Omar al-Bashir. Very interesting. With all the politics around ICC and what they're doing in Africa, I think it's been clear that this man has shown impunity. I mean, he's been traveling around, he's gone to Nairobi, gone to Addis Ababa. No one has arrested him, even though those two countries are signatories to the ICC. I think he feels like I could decide what I want. Yes. If I don't like the results, probably I'm not going to take them. Yes. If I like them, I'm going to take them and enforce them. Yes. That's recipe for war, for battle. And I think we need to be careful about that. Again, the African Union needs to step in and ensure that Sudan doesn't go back to civil war.
Indeed. African Voice again reiterates that we're praying for peace in East and Central Africa. As always, Simon, it's awesome having you on the show, picking your brains on issues around Africa. And until next week, that is all for African News Brief. Coming up next is Sarah with more news.
Thank you, Lenny and Simon. In a short while, we shall be crossing over to the Swahili Fashion Week. But first, here's what's in store.
Much is made of the role of women as peacemakers, but what can women do to help an economy pull back from the brink of squandering its money and resources?
But where did domesticated cats come from? They came, of course, from us.
Welcome back to Africa Voice. The Swahili Fashion Week is a platform where East African designers get to showcase their latest collection and accessories. To view more on the latest trends in East Africa, watch this.
Swahili Fashion Week, the way it started is an amazing story. It has always been a dream and something for me to do, because at the end of the day, as a designer, you create and you keep on creating. But you also want, in Tanzania, we still have not a developed fashion industry. And I wanted to be a change. I'm a leader. I am a person who pushes the boundaries to its limit. Keeping that trend in mind, I wanted to change the face of the fashion industry, where fashion is business.
As part of the preparation for Swahili Fashion Week, a calendar shoot was held on the majestic island of Zanzibar in picture-perfect locations such as the Sandbank, Bweni Ruins, and in the heart of the old stone town.
I always wanted to do this, but the thing was we were not ready, and now we are ready because we have content, we have creativity, and considering Tanzania is now a very capitalist country, there's a lot of economic development, a lot of economic growth, and who better to create employment for ourselves than us ourselves.
The calendar, featuring pieces from the chosen designers from this year's Fashion Week, will raise money for Tanzania Mitindo House.
I strongly believe that instead of going and buying your clothes outside, why don't you get it made or buy from local Tanzanian designers and brands, because the money stays here and the money trickles down to different parts, from the tailor who stitches this to his family, and that person going to buy bread, and that person buy bread credit, and so it's again the oil money stays in Tanzania than going it away outside the country. So that's the major focus of the fashion week.
Malembe.
I used the local kanga mixed with other fabrics. I like to use red, black, and white. They are strong for the kanga, so one collection for one section of my collection. And then I use the suede fabric of the rusty color, and which looks like the typical leather.
The night of the final show, various awards are presented. The Southern Sun Swahili Fashion Week Best Dressed Award went to Caroline Oliwa.
A moment there for Swahili Fashion Week 2009. Congratulations, Caroline.
The Most Outstanding Model Award went to Victoria Martin of Tanzania. The British Council Wapi Emerging Designer Award went out to Tanzania's most talented and aspiring young designers. Winner was Tujenge Africa Matley.
The Swahili Fashion Week keeps getting bolder.
Indeed, Sarah, and kudos to all the participants and designers at the show. Now, speaking about fashion, ever wondered how to dress presidential, Sarah?
Sometimes I do.
Well, in a short while, you'll get to see tips on how to dress presidential, plus the movers and shakers on business this week. But first, ever seen a chicken and a dog fight?
That would be interesting.
Well, that's up next on the funny side of Africa.
I mean, how do they do that?
I'm telling you, Sarah, it gives a new definition to fighting dirty.
Up next is business.
Welcome back. Now, the just concluded World Cup brought out fresh talent. Remember Asamoah Gyan?
Yes, I do.
Well, here are 3 cool facts about him that probably you did not know. Fact number 1. Asamoah Gyan scored the fastest goal of the 2006 FIFA World Cup in Germany. Fact number 2. Asamoah Gyan's girlfriend is Irene Duomo, who won the 2006 Miss Ghana. And finally, fact number 3. Gyan dances and raps. His stage name is Baby Jet, and every time he scores, he performs the Asamoah dance. Sarah, here's something that you probably did not know about me.
And what might that be?
Gyan and I share fact number 3.
Singing.
Indeed, Sarah. Gyan and I are accomplished artists. For myself, I'm a bathroom MC.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lenny CD coming to a store near you. But on to serious matters. Up next, we get to see the impact that women are making in Rwanda.
Much is made of the role of women as peacemakers, but what can women do to help an economy pull back from the brink of squandering its money and resources? This was one of the questions asked at a women's conference in Kigali, Rwanda this week.
Women's empowerment is an essential means to achieving sustainable development, economic growth, and peace and security. We must spread this message and translate it into concrete action at all levels. Now is the time.
If you look at the people who are the bedrock of the economy, are the women, and yet they were never ever acknowledged. They gave it to them in passing. They were the ones who have the children, and that was it. And every household, even the men in our continent know that what they consider their wealth today was done on the labor of women. But women are saying that we're not just going to support you, we're going to be part of it, and we support each other.
In post-war countries such as Rwanda and Liberia, women have played a central role in facilitating the peace process, a factor that has seen numbers of women rise in the political class and consequently taking bigger roles in the economy.
Women have played a major role and continue to play a major role in the economy of any country, and Liberia is no exception. The women in Liberia have been the bedrock for the economy there. They're into almost every kind of business that brings about some remuneration to them. So they've been in the business of education, farming, whatever it is that brings in some support to a country. The Liberian women have found themselves in those roles, and they continue to play those roles, even much more now than they had done in the past.
But just how much do women actually contribute to the economy? According to a recent report by the United Nations, Asia loses $47 million annually due to lack of participation of women in the labor market. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, who opened the conference, challenged world leaders to exploit the potential of the youth as a means towards new and innovative ways to sustain and accelerate progress towards gender equality and women's empowerment around the world.
There is no doubt that leadership is key in many important ways, including shaping and implementing the policies needed to empower women and advance equality in a meaningful way. And certainly, considerable progress has been made over the recent decades towards guaranteeing the space and opportunity for women to participate actively in all aspects of economic, political, and social activity.
Leadership also requires partnerships and action by individuals, women and men alike. After all, the promotion of gender equality is not solely a women's issue. Men at all levels, particularly in leadership positions, have a special responsibility. All people stand to benefit, so all leaders, male and female, must do their part to keep these issues at the top of the international agenda.
Global leaders realize the fundamental differences in investing in women. With the establishment of a Women's Leadership Academy in Kigali and the United Nations in the process of setting up a new gender equity, African women remain hopeful that their role in the growing economies will continue to expand. Global economies are part of a patriarchal system where men run the show. But in recent years, countries such as Liberia and Rwanda have engaged more women into the processes of peace and stability. But these women here are ready to take on Africa's economics heads on.
It's great to see women making an impact in their economies.
Indeed, Sarah, with empowerment and equal opportunities, the sky is the limit for the girl child. Moving over to our pictorial section, our hats off this week go to the founding father of Kenya, His Excellency, President Jomo Kenyatta.
We must show the world that some of them have been wrong, that some of them have misunderstood us, and it's only by our action they will know that we mean business.
Indeed, Lenny, our hats off this week go off to him. Ever wondered how our statesmen keep looking sharp? Well, here are a few tips on how to dress presidential. Personality. Wear a suit that best brings out your personality. Quality. Go for a fabric with great quality. Style. Stick to timeless tailoring rather than style. For more on how to dress presidential, visit Africa Voice on www.a24media.com.
Africa is renowned for its wildlife and big game. Now up next, you get to see the cuts of the wild.
We're in the Amazon basin, and this is a margay mother who has a young kitten on a branch below. Margays are superb climbers and are capable of catching tree frogs and even birds. As they cling onto the branches, they can rotate their hind legs through 180 degrees, and they can run straight down the trunk of a tree head first like a squirrel. This kitten, though, still has something to learn in the hunting department. But where did domesticated cats come from? They came, of course, from us.
Tomb paintings over 3,000 years old show that cats were part of ancient Egyptian life, probably attracted to human settlements by field mice in the cornfields and rodents in our refuse. The African wild cat, the most probable ancestor, is still very similar in size and appearance to the domestic cat. Its most obvious distinguishing characteristic is a reddish tint to the back of its ears, which domestic cats tend not to have. This particular wild cat has chosen semi-domestication and makes its own way indoors into this house on the Kenyan savannah. It obviously enjoys the human attention, but the man knows that it could turn on him at any time, and that when it jumps down from his lap, it will walk straight back into its wild, untamed life. And its lions we take a look at now.
This is probably the image you have of them, the plentiful prides on the plains of East Africa. Some African lions are doing well, but they're really only the survivors of a once much larger family. The final few Asiatic lions, maybe only 20 of them, were saved by an Indian Nawab. And today, about 300 live here in the Gir forest. There's not much visible difference between Asiatic and sub-Saharan lions, But how much difference was there between these modern lions and the famous Barbary lions of the Roman Colosseum? By the 1920s, the Barbary lions were declared extinct in the wild. But is this cub Safi in an English zoo perhaps one of the last of that fabled line? Kabir, the cub's father, with the characteristic Barbary mane running down his chest and belly, and Jade, the mother, can both be traced to the last known collection of Barbary lions owned by the King of Morocco. If you want to catch a glimpse of the wild cat with the widest distribution, then you must raise up your eyes into the trees.
While the herds of wildebeest rumble noisily below, the solitary leopard watches silently from above. Despite its small body size compared to the lion, the leopard is nevertheless capable of taking quite big prey and will hunt almost anything, from a dung beetle to a large antelope. This flexibility means that it can usually avoid direct competition with lions. Leopards hunt mostly at night, but this one has crept close to a herd of Thompson's gazelles in broad daylight. It patiently stalks its prey and then closes with a short, fast, devastating rush.
Well, that's all there is on this week's edition of African Voice.
But before we sign out, here's a sneak peek of what's in store in the next edition.
Heat loss is 27 times faster in water than in air. In these Arctic seas, a human would only survive for a few minutes.
Thank you for keeping us company.
This has been African Voice.